What's up, Colorado State Rams fans? Rich Kurtzman here from MileHighSports.com, presented in part by Crazy Carl's Pizza. It's our post-game wrap-up of the Gildan New Mexico Bowl. Well, the game started slowly for Colorado State and Marshall, and for the Rams, it ended somewhat dramatically. That's right, to start the game, it was a 0-0 tie in the first quarter. It was the first time ever that a game in the Gildan New Mexico Bowl in their 12 years had started 0-0, but after that, the Rams and Marshall Thundering Herd started exchanging touchdowns back and forth for 5 straight drives. Each team scored touchdowns, and Marshall ended up taking that 21-14 lead into the half. Marshall didn't stop scoring there, but let's look at some of their scores because they had some huge plays for big touchdowns. They struck first on a 76-yard touchdown to Tyree Brady. He was the MVP of this game. He ended up finishing with 161 yards and that touchdown. Then Nick Stevens answered with a rollout pass to Dietrich Clark for the score to tie the game up at 7-7. Then Marshall, they punched back with a Ryan Yukicek touchdown, a 15-yarder from their quarterback Chase Litton. CSU, they responded. These were back-to-back-to-back touchdowns, 4 straight and 5 altogether. The Rams responded when Nick Stevens, he actually ran one in. The emergence or re-emergence of Vic Stevens, if you will. It was the last time we ever saw Vic Stevens. Well, actually we saw it later in the game when the Rams tried to mount a comeback. But that was the last time that the Rams scored the ball for a long time. It was a 21-minute and 46-second scoring drought, to be exact. They gave up another huge touchdown. They went into halftime down 21-14, but then right after the half gave up another huge touchdown, a 68-yarder to Keon Davis. He was running, and Jordan Fogle, he tried to punch the ball out, wasn't able to tackle him. He ran into the end zone. So, you know, CSU then, right after half, this is the one that happened after half. It was a 90-yard touchdown to that Jake Schlager. He completely missed the tackle. Tyler King, he scored on that play. So that was followed by a Marshall field goal. They took the 31-14 lead, and at that point, it seemed like CSU, there was no chance that they were going to come back to win this game. The Rams, though, they did fight back, and you know, that 21-minute and 46-second scoring drought that I talked about earlier, that finally came to an end when Stevens had a clean pocket. He didn't have a clean pocket for most of the game. He was sacked 3 times in the first half, 5 times in the game, all told. We'll get into that more in a second. Stevens, once he finally did have that clean pocket, he was able to hit BC Johnson, who caught the ball while he was hit for a huge gain. That a few plays later ended up hitting Dietrich Clark for another touchdown, his second of the day. Dietrich had a huge game. Michael Gallup did not have a huge game. BC Johnson, he led the team in receiving yards. We'll get to that again in a second. The Rams, that seemed to start their comeback. They were down at that point by 10 points, and then Anthony Hawkins actually picked off a pass. He made a great play on the ball, but the Rams weren't able to convert a first down after that. They had to punt it. They got the ball back, though. They didn't quit because even after Stevens was sacked for his 4th time at that point, the defense ended up getting the ball again, and Stevens, he ended up hitting Warren Jackson down the sideline, who was wide open, and then a few plays later, Stevens ran it in. Vic Stevens again to bring the game to an end, 31-28, which ended up being the final score. But the Rams had multiple chances after that to score, to tie, or to even take the lead. They weren't able to. Their game and their season basically ended when they had it on 4th and 11, and Stevens was again sacked for the 5th time on the day. Speaking of Nick Stevens getting hit, early on and often he was hit. He was just hit relentlessly as the Rams offensive line couldn't protect him. The Marshall front 7, they deserve a lot of credit for the pressure that they brought on Stevens. Mike Bobo talked about that today after the game. He said, first and foremost, that this game was pretty much a microcosm of the season. It certainly was. The Rams couldn't stop explosive plays, and on their side of the ball, they couldn't get enough explosive plays. And he also said that it was disappointing. He said that Marshall deserves a lot of credit for bringing a lot of blitzes and saying, hey, you're going to have to beat us despite all the blitzes. Bobo also said that he, as a play caller, needs to do better to not make them a one-dimensional team, which he did. They threw the ball way too often. Nick Stevens wasn't able to hit Gallup. He said he has to hit Gallup on some of those deep balls. It was just over and over and over. When Stevens was able to throw the ball deep down the sideline, he was overthrowing guys over and over again. There were even multiple pass interferences that the Rams got, but they weren't able to complete the passes as we've seen all year long. So even when Nick Stevens was able to throw, he was off all night long. And, you know, At least the Rams responded. They fought back, but they still came up short. This is the 4th straight loss in a bowl game for your Rams. This is a 3rd straight bowl loss under Mike Bobo, the 3rd straight 7-6 season for your Rams. And Bobo said the reason that they're flying back to home tonight is because he has to get back to work. He has to hire a new defensive coordinator, and the rest of the team just has to get back to work with the early signing period starting on Wednesday, very soon, in the next 4 days for your Rams. A couple of more notes. BC Johnson, he led the Rams with 6 receptions for 119 yards. Dalen Dawkins in his final game had 9 runs for 49 yards. Once again, your Rams lost 31-28 here in the Gildan New Mexico Bowl. They're now 2-1 all time in the Gildan New Mexico Bowl, and Rams fans are headed home in sad fashion. That's it for me here down in Albuquerque. Rich Kurtzman from MileHighSports.com. Thanks everybody.